Overall, living in Denmark has been a wonderful experience for us. But there are some aspects that people don't really highlight in their content, and that's the mental health struggles that you may go through as an international living a Danish life.
Living abroad can bring on feelings of sadness, loneliness, and disconnection that some internationals experience after moving to a new country.
Yeah, it's a form of situational depression that's brought on by challenges and stressors that are associated with living abroad.
So let's go through some of these stressors that people don't really talk about, but should.
Now, a lot of these stressors can apply to you moving anywhere in the world, and some are specific to Denmark, and we'll talk about all of them. So one is culture shocks. Now, we have quite a few videos talking about different culture shocks in Denmark, but wherever you move, adapting to a new culture can be overwhelming. There are differences in social norms, in language, in just all kinds of customs, like the many unwritten rules in Denmark that can lead you to really feeling a sense of isolation and confusion. We always say it's almost like being a kid and you have to learn all of these things. And even the most capable people who are very successful in life, those are usually the ones that go and live abroad, aren't used to that feeling of not knowing how to do things, and it can really overwhelm you.
Yeah, another thing to watch out for is homesickness. Now, we've talked in a lot of videos about how moving abroad is like being on a roller coaster. You come over and you have this euphoric high, you're in a new place, everything's new and exciting, and then there's that big dip because suddenly you're missing your family, your friends, and the familiar surroundings. This is all really a common feeling that people have. This feeling of longing for home can lead to sadness. And something that can also be difficult is when you start feeling that longing for home, feeling like, I moved to this place, why do I feel longing for home? I choose to leave. That can really lead to a depressive cycle that comes in where it's like, why am I sad about being in this place and missing my old home when I have my new home? A really important thing for people that move abroad to watch out for and talk about.
Yeah. Another is that feeling, which this sort of leads into, of social isolation. Again, we've talked about how it's tough in Denmark to build that social network and build sort of a friend group from scratch. It's tough in any country, but again, making friends in Denmark can be particularly difficult because of how it's done. It's just that people tend to go a little bit deeper. People tend to have fewer, closer relationships than a wide group of friends. And that can make it difficult for people that are moving here and sort of doing that rebuilding of a friend group or starting from scratch in a friend group, especially as adults. It can really lead to these feelings of overwhelm and feelings of being isolated and by yourself. And we know that that can lead to this sadness and these sort of depression aspects that can be difficult for your mental health.
Another stressor is language barriers. Now, difficulty being able to communicate effectively in the local language or even in a common language like English can lead to a lot of frustration or feelings of inadequacy. Suddenly somebody who wherever they came from was super successful, able to handle everything, able to explain themselves in great detail and get exactly what they want. Now suddenly it may be a lot more difficult. Every interaction can have a different level of frustration. I will say one of the lucky things here in Denmark is because English proficiency is so high, we've been able to use our native tongue in almost any interaction that we've had, public or private or wherever. But depending where you move, this language barrier could be huge and really lead to a lot of stressors where suddenly you're like, I don't feel like doing anything today because I just don't feel like whatever language you're operating in. It's a tough one.
Yeah, especially in Denmark where often, yes, people do speak English, but they're Danes, so their mother tongue is Danish. So when you're with a group of friends, even if it is in, say, a sports team or new friends that you're making, when everybody around you is speaking Danish and you're not quite as proficient in Danish, it's hard to have them switch to English. They usually will right away and naturally, but you sort of feel a little bit of guilt, and that can pile up and add to more of these difficult feelings. Another one is loss of identity. A lot of people do struggle with this. Again, kind of being in that environment where it is very Danish. You may feel compelled to sort of lose your own cultural identity or adapt in ways that you didn't see. And I notice all the time in myself where I'll find that I'm doing things or I'm thinking about the things that I'm doing in a way of like, oh, is this too American? Am I being a little bit too whatever? And there are many ways where I feel like I've lost a bit of my cultural identity. It's something that, I struggle with and sometimes wonder if I'm reaching a certain point where I'm sacrificing a bit of myself. That can really be something that can stress people out. And I have to watch myself that it's not putting me into a negative thought cycle. So definitely be mindful of ways that you can maintain your identity, whether it's doing something in your native culture or finding some people of your native culture to have a conversation with, meet up to talk in your mother tongue, or just maybe have a board game night where you're doing things or playing games that you are used to playing from your home country. It can be a really valuable thing. When you have a lot of pressure to conform to life in Denmark or Danish culture, it can be really nice to also find little ways to hold on to your own.
Yeah, this is something at work that I saw where a few of my colleagues were all originally from Hungary, and every so often they would just have a Hungarian lunch date just because they could sit down and for 30 minutes speak in Hungarian together. It's a great way to maintain that identity in the workplace as well. And that's because one of the other stressors you may come into is work or school stress, depending if you're coming for, say, university or coming for work. Again, a challenge is generally if you're moving abroad, you've been successful in what you've done in your academic or your work activities that you've been going through. Suddenly you're coming to a new work or school environment. It's going to be different culture that you're adapting to. It's going to be different ways that you're operating, different people that you're around. This can lead to stress and anxiety where maybe you were a high performer where you came from and you feel like you're not at the same level because things are just a little bit different from what you're used to. This is definitely a stressor that you can have, especially if you feel like your move abroad was because you do something so well. You feel like you should be operating at an incredibly high level, and not every day is going to be like that, particularly if some of these other stressors are coming into your life as well. So realize work and school can bring stress on their own and be conscious of it.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it when you first moved here because you were basically doing 2 jobs in 2 different time zones for the first period that you were here, while also adapting to all of these things. That had to be pretty tough to go through, and believe that when this happens to you, it's something that we've all been through and you're not alone. It can be tough no matter what because you're going through these changes while also doing something new with work or something new with school. Or maybe just uprooting the life that you left behind while also going through a lot of bureaucratic challenges. So, part of that means that you're also learning how to navigate things with work visas, study visas, the different things that you need to fill out or apply for or go and register for, biometrics, and all kinds of things that you're going to have going on at once. It can really feel overwhelming. It's like drinking out of a fire hose, and it will definitely stress you out in the beginning because you have all of these things going on. But eventually, things do get a little bit easier, and things, are front-loaded for you to do in the beginning when you first move here. But these bureaucratic things also wane over time, and you'll hopefully eventually get sort of a breath of fresh air and be able to just sort of relax and breathe once everything comes through. But keep mindful that it will be a stressor in the beginning.
Another stressor may be a little bit more unique to our experience moving to Northern Europe, but it is seasonal depression. We moved to Denmark, which is further north than Philadelphia, so that means that the winters are longer, darker, and they can be a lot harder because of seasonal depression. This is real, it's not a myth. Like literally, sunlight exposure is key to having happiness. It's key to your mental health needs. And when you don't get that, you certainly can feel mood swings or low energy or other depressive symptoms. So this is definitely something to be aware of, and it's something that you want to help manage because you can't change the climate here. It's going to be long, it's going to be dark. You have to deal with it and realize that and let yourself handle that.
Now, another one that's unique to our situation, if you have followed us for a while, you know that we moved here for Mike's job. So I came here and had to put my job back in the US on hold and basically put my entire career on hold. This can be really tough for people that we call a trailing spouse, trailing partner. Some people prefer the term accompanying partner, but I like to stick with trailing because it's really what you're doing. You are trailing behind somebody else during that period of time, and it may take you a while, if you even do, catch up to where you were professionally before you decided to move. You may have a period of time where you're not able to find work, and in a country like Denmark, it's tough for you to find work if you're not Danish, and there's a Danish person who can do that job. They're probably going to go with the Dane who knows the culture, understands the work culture and a Danish workplace over somebody who's international and may not even be here for that long. So it can be really difficult, and there are definitely stressors that come with being that trailing partner or trailing spouse.
So we've talked about the stressors that you can feel in your life coming abroad. What are the symptoms to watch out for? One is persistent sadness, that feeling of being down or hopeless for an extended period of time. Anxiety, which is worrying excessively about the new environment, social interactions, or work. Loss of interest, as you lose interest in the activities that you previously found exciting. Feelings of fatigue or having your sleep disturbed are major watch-outs. Changes in your appetite, suddenly you're gaining weight or losing weight. Be sure to watch out for that. Also, watch out for the mood swings or irritability that may come through. Suddenly, if you're feeling more easily frustrated or agitated, or if you're having challenges concentrating, a key marker of this as well is suddenly you're losing your focus or making it difficult to take decisions.
So those are the things that you want to look out for. But if you do start to notice these patterns or changes in your behavior, there's a couple things that I recommend you do. One would be to stay connected. Find ways to, especially in the beginning, keep in touch extra good with your friends and family back home. You're going to want to have sort of a transition period where you really lean on that social safety net that you're used to back home. For us, sometimes we would do regular FaceTime calls. So we would know every Sunday we were going to call somebody back home in our family. It's something that we still try to do now. And in that early period, you're really going to want to do that. It's going to make things a little bit easier for you mentally as you're getting through these first stages of living abroad. Make sure that you're building a new support network. Look at all kinds of local groups. Look on Facebook and other places where you may be able to connect with people, join clubs, and sort of reestablish yourself socially as early as you can. You want to meet new people. In the beginning, I think one of our sort of mantras or mind frames was just to say yes to everything. So if somebody said, oh, do you want to go hiking this weekend? Yes, sure. Oh, do you want to go fishing this weekend? Yeah, sure. I don't fish, but yeah, I will go because I need to reestablish myself and make some connections. Of course, learning the language is going to help you too. So enrolling in language classes was one way that we met a lot of our early friends, but it really helped us to feel like we were not just big dumb babies all the time and walking around without any clue of what was going on. Having a little bit of that language, it didn't remove the barrier, but it at least felt like I could walk down the street and recognize the word street when I saw it in Danish. And again, that's just sort of a way of embracing the culture. So one thing that will make it easier too is exploring different local things. So finding Danish things to do, trying new foods, participating in cultural events or a festival that may be going on. It's just going to make you feel a bit more connected and sort of ease that social disconnect that you may feel early on. Also, I think it's important to sort of set realistic expectations. We, I think, tend to move somewhere and have this experience as somebody living abroad thinking that we're going to be like Emily in Paris. And, I love Lily Collins, but it's not always the way that real life works out. So have some actual grounded expectations and realize that I think, as you said earlier, the highs are higher and the lows are lower. You're gonna have days where you almost burst into tears, or maybe you do burst into tears because you use the wrong laundry detergent, and that's okay because you've never done laundry in Denmark before. You don't know what is written or what on that bottle or what that setting is. By the way, one of them is slut, and that's a really difficult thing to have your laundry machine calling you a slut. But it's just one of the settings, and it will be fine. The bottom line is it's important to understand that adapting to a new environment is going to take you time, and it's normal to face these challenges. We all have. You're not alone. But if you do feel that they are overwhelming, it's really important that you seek professional help. Find somebody that you can talk to that will understand depression if it's persistent for you, if it worsens, or if it's something that really seems out of control. If you don't want to get out of bed, find a therapist, a counselor, preferably somebody who understands the expat or international living experience. Again, moving to Denmark, it won't make your problems disappear. And as great as your life can be while living here, this idea of Denmark being a utopian paradise where all of your problems will melt away, it's just a myth. And it's important that you understand these myths. There are many of them that you'll meet along the way. And we have a video you can watch right here, but you'll have to click here to understand more of these myths about living in Denmark. And we wish you luck. Thanks for watching today, everybody.
Hi, hi.